I'm always super awkward when I go live. So I'm going to try and like get the timing right. Here we are. Hello.
Yeah.
Now my internet is not fabulous. So let's see. I'm not yet. There we are. Yeah, we're there. Cool. Hi. All right. I've just got to turn all my other things off so I don't get all the echoing. And right, I'm good. Hi, everyone. This is Summer. And I met Summer last week at a summit that we both spoke in. And as she was speaking, I was like nodding vigorously. Literally everything that you were saying, and you were talking a lot about your mum, who I would enjoy to meet, I'm sure, and all of the reasons that you didn't go to school. I messaged you, or you messaged me, or we messaged each other, and said, we really need to have a chat. So hello, thank you so much. And I'm going to introduce you by saying that, for people who are watching, Summer has never been to school, and look how completely normal she looks.
Oh, don't say that. No such thing. No such thing.
There is no such thing. Absolutely. So we've got an idea of a couple of topics that we want to touch on, but if you're watching this and you're interested to know anything really, because I think like nothing's off limits, right? In a life without school, we're open to everything. And Summer's pretty up for talking about any topic, right?
Yes.
So if you're watching this and you've got questions or you've got a curiosity, maybe you're thinking about living a life without school, maybe you already are. Hi, Lainey, thanks for watching. And Laura, my cousin's watching, Sally's watching. Thanks, guys. So we're going to jump in, and I'm going to ask you to tell us about what you're doing right now, because I also find that really interesting. And then I've got a couple of kind of conversation starters.
Sure. You mean like, what am I doing right now as far as a career goes? Because everyone wants to know, like, how do you make money? Someone didn't force you to learn certain things that we think you need to make money. Yeah.
Let's start there.
Something like that. Yeah, I actually blow glass for a living, so I'm an artist. I started out working on a torch making hand sculpted glass beads when I was about 14. And I really feel that the only reason I'm doing what I'm doing is because I didn't go to school. I don't think I would have discovered my passion so young. I certainly wouldn't have had the time and energy to devote to developing my craft and exploring my craft and mastering my craft the way that I did. So while everyone else was in high school, I was building my own business. And that's what I still do today, is I run my own business. I have a wholesale hand sculpted glass jewelry business. And then I worked my way up into larger blown glass and sculpture. So I make glass things.
Wow.
I do lots of like vases and bowls and things like that. I work out of 2 different hot shops here in Hawaii. To make myself sound impressive, I could say I've got job offers from about 3 other glass blowing shops. It's hard to find really good glass blowing assistants out here. And I have about 10 years experience in a hot shop. And that's like pretty valuable in that world, because it takes several years of training. And I did that just by apprenticing myself with other artists and working my way up in the studios. But now what I do is I actually work out of 2 different glass blowing shops, and I just rent time, or I kind of work trade for studio time. And then I make my own pieces and then I sell them out of their galleries. So I kind of have 2 things going on. I have my jewelry business, which is like my main source of income. And that's my own thing. I have my own studio. And then I have the glass blowing, which is the larger stuff. And I have to work out of other people's studios because that's like a massive, you wouldn't believe the equipment and stuff that goes into that. It's not something you can like have at home or run on your own. You need a team. So that's what I've been up to. I live in Hawaii, and my life is glass and gardening and belly dancing. That's what I do.
That sounds all right. It does sound all right. So it sounds like we were chatting just before we started, because actually what we really want to talk about or add into the conversation for anyone who's watching is a challenge for parents or an invitation really to think about living without school very, very differently to how you think about life with school in terms of a product being delivered at the end of it, which is what school gives us. And you know, in our life, and this is the challenge that my kids issue to me all the time, the idea of having a product at the end of it, I mean, that's the opposite of what we're talking about. So on the one hand, people ask all the time about, will my kid learn to read? What if they want to go to university? How will they learn all the stuff that they perceive they need to learn?
Well,
parents are like looking.
Yeah, they're looking for, they want to know if it works because they were brainwashed their whole childhood to believe that if they hadn't been forced, then they would not have been okay. So it's kind of like Stockholm syndrome, you know, when a child grows up in an abusive household and they grow to think, well, I needed my parent to hit me, otherwise I would never have learned to be respectful. And that to me is like, that's brainwashing, that's Stockholm syndrome, to think that you need to be abused in order to be okay. So that comes from a belief of thinking that like there is something inherently wrong with you at birth and you need to be forced. And that's ridiculous, because if something is inherently wrong from you at birth, that means that, and then you turn around and you force someone else to be okay as well. Like we're in this really sick cycle of like abusers abusing and the abused becoming the abusers. And it's like, it all comes from fear, and it comes from fear of your own true nature and what you were born as. Because if you really believe that you were born deficient and lacking, and that if some outside authority didn't force you against your will to do things that you were uncomfortable with, then you would be a failure in life. And so you perpetuate that, because that ends up being how you see your children, if that's how you see yourself. So then it just keeps going. Yeah. And then you train your children to distrust themselves by distrusting them yourself. So every time you treat your child in a way that is like, comes from that place of not believing that they are perfect and whole and complete as they are, every time you take any action or any word coming from that place, you are training them to distrust their own true nature and to be unconfident, you know, unstable, questioning, just fearful human beings, because they're getting that message from you, and they will believe you because you are their everything. Like you are their sustenance. Yeah. You know, physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. The way that you see your children is how they will grow to see themselves. But oftentimes we rarely look at what that actually means in reality. Like that's a nice concept, but we don't think about like, what does that actually look like? Because it's not just about what you consciously think of your children, because people can very easily say like, oh, I know my children are perfect and wonderful and amazing. And I'm like, yes, but is that translating in how you treat them? Is that the message that they're getting? That's what you think consciously, but unconsciously you have all this programming that keeps slipping out, you know, that comes from this point that I'm not okay as a human being, that I need some outside authority to force me in order to be successful in life. And so you teach your children that unconsciously. So it's, to me, it's like, this whole self-directed learning thing, it's really about healing your own fear of who you are and letting go and trusting the absolute perfect like intelligence of nature that your child was born with. It's like their inherent wisdom that I know exists, but some people, maybe it takes a little unlearning and deprogramming to get that point where you can recognize that you also were born with that innate intelligence. And it's about getting back in touch with those instincts and connecting with your child and trusting that relationship, instead of all these ideas that have been shoved down your throat your whole life. Like they're not true. And we just keep acting as if they are without even questioning them. And that's where I like that's kind of my area of passion, is like helping like uncover those things and questioning, why do you believe this? Where did this belief come from? Is it true? How do you know it's true? and rooting that out, because only when you let yourself be free can you allow your children to be free. And that's basically
absolutely that's the work. Yeah, that's the work, and that's the challenge, because when you're not used to freedom as an adult, because you have been programmed and controlled your entire life, not only by your parents but by the systems that we are enmeshed in,
Yes.
that we're complicit in, we forget. I mean, you had your whole life as a free person, so maybe you didn't have to go through this recovery, but I certainly did. And initially, because my children kind of just like scratched away at the surface until it bubbled out of me. And when that's new, because it's been pushed down for your entire life, it can be a little bit scary. Because it's like, what the fuck? I didn't know that was in there.
I mean, it's all about control, right? So like losing control is absolutely terrifying, because you've been taught that if you lose control, it's all going to fall apart.
And you got to keep a lead on it.
You have to keep yourself under control. You have to keep your children under control. Everything like requires control. And it's very like opposite to what we see all around us in nature, because personally, I feel that we're just part of an ecosystem, and we've forgotten that we're just part of this ecosystem that is constantly moving and developing and changing and growing. And we think we have to know where it's going, but I'm more about like what's happening right now, because people often in this like life without school or unschooling or whatever you want to call it, it's like they want to it's like, so they choose to not put their kids in school, but then they think that they have to compensate for that and fill the space that school would have taken, right? So it's like we need to replace it with something. And that's what society will tell you. It's like, oh, you're not going to school. What are you doing instead? What are you replacing school with? As if school is like the gold standard. And if you're not doing school, then you have to do something else. Like you have to put all this other stuff in the space. And for me, I see school as being the invasive species. Like your child is a natural, like indigenous forest, and school is the invasive species that's come in and it's choking out the native species. And when you remove the invasive species, it'll grow back naturally on its own. Like you don't have to propagate, you don't have to go in there and mess with it. You'll only make it worse. It's like you remove the invasive species and the indigenous forest will grow back naturally as it was meant to be, all on its own with very little help from you, like maybe a little water, like, but it's very minimal on your part. Like you don't need to replace school. Like you can remove school, period. That's it. You just
there's the wild forest is just down there.
Yeah.
Lainey and I were actually talking last night on Facebook about if you've had children in school and you identify as being a certain kind of person, right? And normally it's a parent who's very involved doing all the stuff. And then when they're not in school, and actually they don't really want you to do a whole lot, really, if we're honest about it. And my kids don't. I mean, they want me to be around and maybe like buy them some Pokemon toys and type something in the computer and give them some food, but they don't want me to really do much more than that, apart from to just like hold them. And initially it's like, well, I don't know what to do now, because like the world tells me that we've got to be constantly like interfering and controlling their time and checking. And
I've seen it over and over again. I spent a lot of time as a nanny for many years. So that's really one of the only other jobs I ever had other than glass was I worked in childcare. I was a nanny for lots of different ages, lots of different families. And one of the things that I saw constantly was mothers, especially for some reason, I think just societal pressures, feeling like they're never doing enough, like they're not fulfilling their job as a parent. And then you add the not going to school bit, and they feel like it's like they're firing themselves and they need to like compensate, like make a new job. And so then take this job of like, well, I have to be the teacher now too. And so it's like, I think it's proving something to yourself, proving something to the world that like you're doing a good job and you're doing enough.
Yeah.
And so a lot of mothers, especially for some reason, overcompensating, feeling like they need to do from that reality of like we need to produce a product in order to prove our success. Like, see, I'm doing a good job because my kids learned how to do this thing, and just this constantly like, wanting to have something to show. And so moms are like exhausting themselves, just completely wiping themselves out in this effort to like make up for and compensate for, and to prove that they're doing a good job, just to themselves even, you know, like I'm doing enough, because we have been taught that we're not enough as we are, and that we're not enough just being with our children. And so it's interesting because like when I recently took on a little bit of childcare because I really missed having little ones around in my life, and I met this beautiful little girl and I was like, yes, I'll hang out with you. So my mom and I would go pick her up. She's 2 years old, and we'd spend all afternoon with her. And it was so beautiful to see how like very little is required, even in the interactions. Like the way that people, one of the things that we do to feel like we're doing something for or with children is this talking, this constant narration. And I feel like we're just completely disrupting their like natural peace, and also whatever it is that they're contemplating or witnessing or observing or learning. We're constantly distracting by this like incessant chatter. And oftentimes I see it with parents, especially the parents who aren't doing school, even a little more so, is that trying to make everything into a teaching and trying to make every single moment
teachable moments.
yeah, you know, like, oh look, do you see that's blue? Do you know what else is blue? Can you see? Oh look, this is the same letter as the letter in your name. Can you say the sound? And it's like, and I've come across so many moms who, you know, out of love, and it's like, I'm not saying, like, I know that it's coming from a place of love and caring, but it's also coming from a place of fear. And and I see so many of these unschooling moms, especially, thinking that that's their new job. Like, that's my job, is to turn everything into a teaching, and to turn all of my child's curiosities and interests into a teaching tool. And to me, that's like weaponizing a child's natural curiosity and interest.
Oh, it switches it off. It absolutely. If my kids sniff that I want to teach something, and they're like, hell no. Yeah, absolutely.
So my whole thing is like, less is more. Because honestly, like, if you want your children to feel the way I felt about my mom, like safe, I could ask her anything, I could tell her anything, and I never felt like she was going to use it, turn it around and use it like to manipulate me or coerce me, or influence me in any way, then you have to let that go. Like, you have to let that go, and you have to find in yourself that trust that they will learn naturally on their own, and that you literally can just answer very simply when they ask questions, and no more. You do never have to offer any teachings. You can offer it's like it for a while. I feel like for a while I want to like challenge moms in the beginning, like just to see how long you can go in a day. Like, wake up that morning, see how long you can go without instigating anything, not even instigating a conversation. Don't ask a question. Like, see how long you can go being completely passive, and allowing it to come from your children 100%. Just wait.
It's amazing how long children go without food.
How long they go. And then if they ask a question, then you answer, but answer really simply. Because I talked to this mom one time who, we were having this really great conversation, and she said her daughter came to her and asked her what time it was. And she was like, well, do you see the big hand? And here's the little hand, and like tried to turn it into a lesson in telling time, when her daughter just wanted to know what time it is. And I was like, that to me, that's like, I get where that's coming from, but how would you feel if that to you?
Sorry, we're just putting on some pajamas here. I've got some...
Nice and cozy.
All right. Sorry. The onesie went inside. It's unschooling, baby.
Yeah. Kids come first.
All right, there we go. I think you're good now. 'Cause I reckon.
Come on, ladies. Come on, ladies. One by one, please. Come on, ladies. Come on, ladies. One by one, please. Come on, ladies. Let me do that. Let me do that.
I'm just gonna. Do you guys want to keep singing as you go down that way?
Come on, ladies. Come on, ladies. One by one, please. Come on, ladies.
That's two 7-year-olds, two 7-year-old girls.
Okay.
They're very funny. I'm just going to see if anyone's got any
Come on, ladies.
questions. Oh, Harriet, my friend Harriet, she's she's up north further. She saw your talk and that you did for Chanel Summit as well. Yeah. Well, no one's got any questions, but they all love what you're saying. Yeah, Harriet's just saying, I love that you're saying this. I did it today. My kids won a competition and I felt like it was an achievement to me too. And my mum congratulated me, but then I felt a bit icky, like, why did I need this validation for my kids doing what would be thought of as educational? Yeah, my 7-year-old was pissed off with one, like he was, who cares? Yeah, they don't need it. You know what I've had this thought for quite a long time. You've probably read, you read any Alfie Cohen books? I'm assuming you would have heard of him, even if you haven't read any.
I've heard, yeah.
Yeah, he's written a book called No Competition, and I like what he says about competition. I have this feeling, really, I've got no like scientific basis for it, but that competition in the way that we use competition now is not a natural human behavior. I believe that it's you know, we've kind of manipulated a natural instinct to survive, which we would have needed, I guess, when we were living more of a you know, a foraging kind of lifestyle. It's been manipulated and turned into competition. And one of my children in particular, like, abhors competition. Like, he just won't touch it with a barge pole. He's not interested in it. He rejects it. He gets almost offended by it. And we've got this idea that kids need competition, which it's the same. I mean, it's just a carrot and a stick, isn't it? It's the same type of manipulation as any other form of coercion, bribery, threats, punishments. I mean, competition is the same thing, because if you don't win, you lose,
Well,
and then you feel bad.
Competition requires comparison. It requires that you see yourself as better or worse than someone else. So it's very, very school minded. I really feel like competition, well, I mean, back in like, what was it, ancient Greece, the Romans, there was some political uprising, and that's when they came up with the big games, was like to distract people from the real issues that were going on. Like, let's have a competition and distract everyone from what's really happening and get them obsessed with who's winning and losing. And so I see that happening a lot. And also, like, I don't know if you've read the continuum concept, or yeah, it was that one. Yeah, the continuum concept, where she describes living with this tribe in the Amazonian jungle and talks about how they don't have competition, but they have lots of games, and the children naturally come up with games together. And even if it's a test of ability, they're only testing themselves against themselves and trying to be better than they were. They are never trying to be better than another child. They think it would be ridiculous, especially, they were saying, like, children of different ages. She was writing that like, that would be ridiculous for an older child to want to beat a younger child, or for a younger child to compare themselves to an older child, because they're physically more advanced. And so, like, and that's not just about age. That would be like, we all develop differently at different times. So competition is really completely ridiculous, in the sense that we're all going to have different strengths and weaknesses and be at different developmental stages. And children, I don't think children would naturally come up with competitive games themselves. Like, I don't think that anyone wants to make anyone feel bad. Like, you see it when they're really little. I remember, like, that was one of the things my mom talks about in her school experience, because my mom is really, really capable. She's really, really smart academically, and then she's very physically capable as well. Like, she was the one setting records in the you know, sprinting and cheerleading, and like she's amazing, she's physically amazing. And she said that as a child she would always get picked first, and there was this sense of guilt because she made someone else feel bad because and she didn't enjoy the feeling of being better than someone and making someone feel bad for not being as capable as her. And she said that like that experience as a child is one of the things that she thought about when choosing not to put us in school, was like not wanting to subject her children to this constant comparison of abilities between different people, and this feeling and this win-lose kind of thing. And she really wanted us to just be who we are and not because of anyone else. And oftentimes I see that children when competition gets introduced, they'll start to do things they maybe don't even want for themselves just to win over someone else. So you're no longer self-motivated. You're not motivated by self or by like, you know, your own natural desires and passions and interests. You're then motivated just by being better than someone. And that can turn into something really icky, and it can cause a lot of self like conflict. And you know, when you're motivated by what someone else thinks of you or your effect on someone else, you're no longer self-motivated. So you can like veer off, and it's not a pleasant feeling, and we don't always catch it or realize it until later. You know, I've had those moments in my life where I catch it later and I'm like, wait, I'm not even doing this for myself. I'm just doing this because of what someone else.
Yeah.
But we encourage that in children. That's what's bizarre, is that we do. And then we encourage it and we want them to win. My mom, but I have 2 older brothers, 1 younger brother. So there's 4 of us. And my 2 older brothers at one point joined Little League, which is baseball, American baseball. And when they're really young, I think they were 5 and 7. And she really didn't want to do it, but my dad really wanted them to do it, and they said they wanted to do it, and she was like, oh, okay, fine. And so joined them in Little League, and she said it was absolutely disgusting. The parents would cheer when the other team, like when a 5-year-old missed a ball on the other team, the parents would cheer for that child failing. And that was just like, my mom was like, I can't even, she stopped going to their games. She's like, I can't be here. I don't support this. Like, I'm not going to stop you from playing if that's what you want, but I don't support this. I don't want to be around it. This doesn't make me feel good. And she didn't even come to the games. And then there were times when the coaches were super nasty. And then my brothers would come home in like this really weird headspace, and they'd be mean to my brother and I. And my mom was like, that's it. We're not doing this anymore. Like, this is having a hugely negative effect on our whole family. And this is not cool. And my brothers were not, they didn't fight it. They were like, yeah, okay, we don't really like this anyways. And so it kind of just went away. But it was really awful there for a minute. And it was just the way that the parents were so, like, it would have been fine for some kids to have a baseball game and everyone to be happy and friendly about it, and not have this focus on this win-lose, but just the intensity of the parents, you know, was so ridiculous that my mom was just like, and you know, we had other games that we were involved in where there was some competition, but it was not like that. Like, you know, I won a bowling competition. I was like really good. I won Northern California bowling competition when I was 9, and I got a trophy and everything. That was really fun, but there was always this kind of sinking feeling in my gut, like someone lost, and I caused that. I caused pain because I'm good at something. And that is like so psychologically damaging, I feel, for a child to feel that because they're good at something, they caused pain. You know, that being excellent causes suffering. And that in order for you to be good at something, someone has to be bad. And that's where I feel like that's the competitive mind that and that's just, it causes children to hold back even. Like my mom said that she tried not to be so good at things so she didn't make other people feel bad. And that's, I said, so all that comes from comparison. And we do it. And the unschooling moms do it because unconsciously, absolutely unconsciously, but doing the like, my child isn't at the same academic level as a school going child.
or better, people like to talk about how their kids are, they think they're ahead of, and therefore validating that what they're doing is working. It goes back to that concept of something working.
You've just introduced this competition and
But kids aren't.
Whenever you compare your child to another child,
and they're not naturally looking for it. I don't know if that's my internet might be going a little bit funny because I'm sitting in a weird spot. So that's a nice lead into what I wanted to talk to you about around like personality traits. But before I ask you that question, I just wanted to add in an observation, which is kind of where we're going, around how we in our society, I mean, school is it pervades everything, right? And the majority of children do go. We think children are a certain way. And when they're not in the school system, they are not that way at all. So we have as a society, we have a totally false set of beliefs around what children are actually like.
You familiar with Carol Black? She's written some of my favorite things on self-directed learning. Carol Black,
okay.
I'll send it to you. She also made a documentary called Schooling the World. It's about the history of school.
Oh, okay. I've heard of Schooling the World. Right.
I love one of her quotes, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard this one, but it's about how, I'm not going to get this right, but observing, basically what we think of children is based on our observation of children in school. And that's very much like observing whales at SeaWorld. We don't know what their natural behavior is because we're only observing them in an unnatural environment.
In captivity, we're observing them in captivity. When children, I mean, and this touches on your point before about actually being with children, observing, and John Holt famously spent, I think, years observing children. What you notice about them when you just sit back and observe is that they're nothing like what we're told they're like. And one of the things that I've noticed about my own children and also myself, because now I'm not running around doing school drop-offs and having to do all the stuff, my true self is emerging too, which is where it's our true innate self and our instinct and our intuition is so intertwined with our relationship with our children. We think children need certain things when in fact they need nothing of the sort. We think children need to be socializing. That's one of the big questions that people have around any kind of home education or alternative education. What about socializing? One of the things that's unfolded in my family and other families that I know too, and we were touching on this just before, is that most human beings don't have a need to be constantly around other human beings, constantly engaged in overt socializing. Most human beings actually appreciate and enjoy and probably need far more quiet, reflective time than what we A, allow in school, and B, think children actually need. And you extrapolate that to populations across the world, we could very well have the entire human race pegged completely wrong.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think that it has to do with our westernized way of socializing, that we have this idea, we're so over mentally stimulated and disconnected from our natural state that we're constantly acting and pretending when we're around other people. And we're constantly tailoring our behavior to what is socially acceptable. And that's exhausting. And so we project that onto children in the sense that we think that children need a certain type of socialization. And I feel like it's not about socialization or not socialization. It's about what we view as socialization and what we think that looks like. Because to me, it could be socialization when the child is sitting on the floor playing by themselves and you're doing the dishes. You don't have to be actively engaging for that to be human interaction. You can remain connected and in tune with your child even when you're not talking or actively engaging. And so it's interesting that we have this yeah, I don't know. The whole thing about socialization to me is like absolutely ridiculous that it's a concern at all in the first place, because you're their parent and they're socializing with you. So I don't see like what this idea about needing peers is. Like, I don't know where that came from. I don't know who came up with that. I think it's absolute bullshit. It's not, it has no, like, to me, if children were meant to hang out with children their own age, we would be giving birth to litters, not single children. So children, like in all these observations, like in the continuum concept and her observations of these indigenous cultures, these hunter-gatherer cultures that are super happy and peaceful and amazing cooperative tribes, societies, the children, she observed how children learn better from older children than they do from adults, and how older children learn from teaching younger children more than from being instructed, so, or from repetition. So it's like the way that knowledge and learning transfers from person to person, like, is so beautiful when it's in this natural kind of environment where all the ages are mixed up and everything's just flowing and happening naturally without this controlled, we need kids to hang out together at certain age groups and we need them to be exposed to certain types of people. Like, it's all just control. We're just absolute control freaks, you know, and we think we know what a child needs. But the thing is that every child is so completely unique in their development that how can you possibly know that this child is going to need to hang out with more people their own age and this child isn't? And then people want to know, well, then how do I tell? And I say, you don't, they do. And maybe not even consciously, they'll just gravitate. And you don't have to be like watching and waiting and concerned and waiting for the opportunity to help that and, you know, support that and this whole thing. Like, that's more control. It's just more control. And to me, it's like, this happens totally naturally. Like, I remember as a child, people being like, what about socialization? That was like number one, maybe number two question. It's like, well, how did you learn how to read? Which is like the first major paranoia. And then what about socialization? And I remember my brother, my older brother, he's great. He would be like, I'm talking to you right now, aren't I? Like, is this not socializing? You asking me that question and me responding? Like, how is that not so? Like, I'm socializing right now. And just this idea that socialization happens in these controlled groups of children is really silly, because human beings are naturally social creatures to some extent. We all have a different, you know, natural level of what we enjoy as far as exposure to people or being alone. And we'll draw that to us or will not. And I think it's really strange that parents try to control their child's social life even a little bit. Personally, I don't think children really need any kind of peer interaction until they themselves seek it out. I certainly didn't. I was very, very happy just cruising with my brothers. You know, we had a great time together. And then at a certain age, like maybe when I was like 6, I met this 9-year-old girl who was also like unschooled-ish, and our families became friends. And then she was my best friend. And we were 3 years apart, which is a lot for a 6 and a 9-year-old, you know, that's a pretty big age gap when you're that young. And we were best friends. We were inseparable. And then that went on for a couple of years. And then we moved to Hawaii when I was 11. And that's when I started really wanting more of a social life. I mean, I wouldn't say that was like a conscious, like, I want more of a social life. It was just like, it sort of started happening. It started evolving, and I got involved in things like I wanted to take ballet classes. So I started getting friends through there. And then we started this like homeschool wilderness survival classes and friends through that. And I met some other homeschoolers, and I developed my own social network, and not because of any kind of influence or control from a parental figure. You know, my mom wasn't like calling and making play dates for me when I was 3. It was really like, no, I'm fine. I'm happy and content. And until like my mom, basically, she tried to support our whole health. So physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And she knew that we had a natural balance. And like her job really was just to help us maintain that natural balance. And so until she could see that something was going out of balance, she mostly just protected that. And then when she could see that something was getting out of balance and there was some discontent, she would try to ascertain where that was coming from and help us come back into balance. And so it was like, don't mess with something. Like if a kid is happy and and they're fine and they're playing alone, like why mess with that? Like don't mess with it, don't fix it unless it's broke, basically, you know. And I feel like we're constantly trying to fix something that's not broken. We're trying to like provide and implement all these things that there's not a need has not been expressed. So until a need for socialization is expressed in some shape or form, like just leave it alone. And then when that need is expressed, you go, okay, what do you want to do about it? Instead of taking over and trying to control and provide all these perfect scenarios and opportunities and all of this. It's like, no, it's your life. You know, how do you want to go about that? What do you want to do about it? I'm here to assist you, but I'm not going to take control. So yeah, I mean, I think that school socialization is extremely narrow and limited. I mean, you're forced to interact with kids mostly just your own age, and you're being controlled by an adult authority figure. Whereas my socialization was all across the board my whole life. I was with my mom in real life. So I was with her when we went into the bank and we chatted with the teller, you know, and I learned how she was balancing a checkbook. And I was with her when the car, you know, got a flat tire and we had to call the tow truck guy, and he like came and we like talked to him, and like I learned how to socialize with real life people in real life scenarios and how to manage real life problems all at once, and not on purpose, and not because anyone was controlling any of that. It was literally just because that's life. That's how life happens. And also learning how to connect with and interact with, socialize with different kinds of people of all different ages and walks of life. And I've learned as an adult, I get to see the what do I say, like how that affected me and how that affected my social skills, because a lot of people meet me and they're like, you were, you know, I usually say I'm homeschooled because that's what people understand. They're like, you're homeschooled, but you seem so like socially well adjusted and well spoken and like normal, whatever that means. And that always makes me laugh, because to me it was like, yeah, because I know how to talk to people, because I was in the world, I was having real conversations. And and
not kept separate from the world.
Yeah. I met a kid one day. I was selling my work at a farmer's market years ago, and this like maybe 12-year-old 12-year-old boy comes up to my booth, and I'm talking to an adult couple. He comes up on the side and he's waiting very patiently, very intentionally, and I was like, whoa, this kid's different. So I finished the conversation I'm having and I turned to him, and he very clearly and articulately asks me very intelligent questions about my work and wants to know prices. And he's looking me straight in the eye, like this very mature human being. And I was like, are you homeschooled? And he goes, yes, I am. And I was like, I can tell. I was like, I could totally tell. I was like, because you know how to talk to me, like as an equal. And most kids that age, like they have a hard time looking you in the eye. They constantly act like they're doing something wrong because they're used to adults being authorities, not equals. And so it's really interesting when you meet a kid and you can tell, like, oh, you've been treated like a human being because you're actually interacting with me as an equal and you're not afraid of me. And I was like, that is a product of natural socialization, in my opinion, instead of adults being authority figures and only peers being friends and social interactions. And so that was a really fun experience. I can always tell when I meet a homeschooler. I can always tell. And then it's expressed in myself. It's expressed itself later in life. Like I work in different glassblowing shops. I was working at this large glassblowing shop for a handful of years, and I was doing the glassblowing assisting, but then I also started working sales in the gallery. And this is like a fine art glass gallery. You know, we're talking multi-$1,000 pieces and really high-end clients. And I don't have any training in that. I don't have anything like that, but I can talk to anybody. And so customers would come in and it was just always, I could easily connect and conversation would flow. And I ended up being like the best salesperson there, even though some of the other salespeople had way more experience in sales and had, like all these, or even had credentials. And people that they wanted to know what my trick was. And I was like, well, I've never been limited in my socialization. It's always been wide open. And so I know like it comes naturally to me to interact with all different kinds of people of all walks of life, because I wasn't stuck in a social box. And so it's interesting when people who are school minded are concerned about socialization, because to me, it really should be the opposite. Like I would think that socialization should be like one of the main concerns. Oh, you're sending your kids to school. Like, what about socialization? That should be the question. It should totally be the opposite. Aren't you worried that they're going to be limited? Aren't you worried that they're just
only hanging out with 10-year-olds
and only going to be hanging out with with a very small group of same age children being controlled by an authority figure? But that's what school's about. They want you to get used to that, because then they want you to go into the workforce and just be a group of mindless drones being controlled by an authority figure. So it's just training. They don't really want, it seems to me like they don't want this kind of freedom of interaction between all walks of life and all people, which gets into a whole nother conversation about,
it's much easier to withhold information if our society operates in tiers.
It's much easier to control the flow of information if you segregate people into age groups or race groups or whatever groups it is, right? So it's much easier to control the people and control the flow of information and tell one group this and another group this and all of that. But that gets into like a whole nother political kind of like conversation.
But we can talk about that tomorrow.
But
you can't separate it though. It's all
connected. It's all connected. I mean, that's one of the things I find interesting is that people are, I look around at the world and like, of course I can see a lot of all the positive things, but on the negative side, like I see so much suffering and so much pain around in the world. And yet we keep choosing to send our children into the same program that has got us to this point. So I look around and I see a broken system. I see, it's so much, but it's interesting to me that like this program is produced this, and yet we're still sending our kids back into it and then going, why are we so miserable? Why are we at war? Why are we blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, because we keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, which is the definition of insanity. And to me, it's all about how we raise children. It's all about how we raise children. Because, and then to be concerned about this tiny little bit of learning, which is the academic aspect, which to me is like a fraction of what learning actually is and what human development actually is. I mean, this academic stuff, all that academic stuff they teach you in 12 years, stretch it out in boring, brain numbing ways, can be condensed and learned in maybe about 2 years or less, if that's what you want to do, if you're motivated.
Even if you even need it, that's
what I mean. If that's what you want to do, if that's what you're motivated to do. And yet somehow, we have this idea in our culture that this is the most important thing to learn: how to read, how to write, how to do math, how to do, and that takes priority over all other kinds of learning and development. So we don't care if you're happy, satisfied. We don't care if you're, doing something you love, if you're pursuing your passions, we don't care about your relationship skills. We don't care about your communication. We don't care about any of that. We just want to make sure that you can do these menial tasks to join the labor force. And it's not about being a whole person. So to me, it's like we have it opposite. And if we take care of the whole person, I feel that if a child is in their natural balance and we protect their natural development and you support their health and well-being and physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that little tiny bit of learning that we're so obsessed and concerned with, that like is a side note. And that happens totally naturally when the child is in their natural balance. So I genuinely believe that if a child is healthy and grows up in a loving, supportive environment, they will learn those things and you cannot stop them. So I oftentimes like can't relate to that concern, like, oh, my child is 9 and they're not reading, like what am I gonna do? I love them, you enjoy them, you support them, and it will come. Like I promise you, there's not a 15-year-old that's going to be like, I'm not getting my driver's permit because I don't know how to read. Like that's not going to happen. They will find a personal reason, because every human being craves independence. You see it in toddlers, in infants. As soon as they can do it themselves, they're pushing your hand away.
Yeah, they're pushing you away.
Like,
absolutely.
No. They're like, I want to do it myself. Like they want that independence and that sense of accomplishment. Like it feels good. It feels good to be able to do something on your own. And so my mom saw that right away, like, whoa, like that desire for independence, she felt like is absolutely an innate human instinct to thrive, to live, and to accomplish. And she just trusted that desire for independence would drive our learning. And it absolutely does, because what teenager is going to want to be like, Mom, can you read me the menu? Like they want to do it themselves. They will find a personal reason. And so, I know someone's going to at some point probably ask, whether now or later, how I learned how to read, but it was a personal desire. It was, Mom was reading Harry Potter out loud. I wanted to know what happened next in the story, and I didn't want to wait for her to read out loud. So I sat down and I was like, this is happening. I'm going to get this thing. Because I'd tried like little bits over the years, and I picked up a lot over the years, whether on purpose or by accident. It just happens, you accumulate knowledge without even realizing it. So, but it was one of those things that it didn't come really easily for me, like it did for my older brother, who was reading like chapter books at 4 just because he wanted to. But it didn't come easily for me, and I really wasn't interested. I was much more of a creative, imaginative type. Like I was living in my own little imaginary world, playing with the fairies and building fairy houses outside. Like that was my thing. And lots of arts and crafts. And I just wasn't really that interested, and I didn't enjoy it. And so it wasn't until I was like 11, and I had already, like, I could read if I really focused and I tried really hard, but I didn't enjoy it. So I was not fluent. And then 11, Harry Potter, and I sat down on the couch with that book, like absolute determination. This will happen today. I will master this. And when you have that kind of resolution, it's like, it's so powerful. My mom was like, I don't think she was cooking or something in the kitchen, and I would call her and ask her to come over every now and then to help me with something that I couldn't quite get through, because I already knew the sounds. It just was a struggle, and so she would come over and she would help me, and she would just, and this is the thing about the way that my mom helped all of us learn that I think is absolutely brilliant. She would just answer the question, and she would not give me any more than what I asked for. Like, she was very careful to not, like, use it against me and turn it into something else. Like, if you asked me what that word says, I'm not going to make you sound it out. I'm going to answer your question. Yeah. So she would answer my questions honestly and directly, and therefore I always felt safe asking her anything. And I knew who not to ask. I knew who was going to do that to me, and I stopped talking. Like, I stopped sharing with them and asking questions, specifically my grandma, who turned everything into a teachable moment. But that was how my mom did it. And she also didn't only allow me to show her what I wanted to learn or when I wanted to learn it, but also how I wanted to learn. So she didn't come at me with a method like, okay, this is how you want to learn how to read. This is how you learn how to read, and take over. It was like, okay, what about this are you interested in learning? Like, what part? Where do you want to start? What's your motivation? Because, like, my older brother wanted to learn how to read a specific book. He didn't care about, it wasn't like, I want to learn how to read. It was, I want to read this book. And so they sat down together when he was 4, and mom says it took about maybe 2 or 3 hours. They sat there and went through that book word by word by word by word. He didn't want the formula to reading. He wanted just to read this book. So she just taught him what he wanted to know, how he wanted to know it. And then with me, it was, I wanted the formula. I used the Harry Potter book, and that was what I was wanting the formula for. But to me, it was like, I wanted to know how to read as a whole. So it was a little bit of, it was a different motivation, and therefore in a different way, and just how I needed and how I wanted. You know, like, what do you want to learn whole words? Do you want to learn the sounds of letters? You know, like, people have this idea like, oh, phonics is the best way, or this is the best way, or whatever. And it's like, no, actually only your child knows what the best way for them to learn is. So it's like trying to remain open to that and allowing them to show you what, when, and how they want to learn. So that's my thing about reading. And then people want to know about writing, and I'm like, well, once you're reading the way I ended up,
the rest comes. Yeah,
I ended up finishing Harry Potter in about 2 days, and then I got the next book and the next book and the next book, and then it was like any fantasy novel I could get my hands on, and I would read 8 hours. I would just read all the time. That's what I did for a couple of years, pretty much, was like, I just read all the time. And occasionally my mom would be like, honey, like, you're getting weird. Like, can we go outside? Let's go for a walk, like, have a drink of water, like, stretch your body a little bit. You'll sleep better. You'll feel better. My mom had this really beautiful way of working with us, without having it be like a controlling thing or an authority thing, but like really working with us as a partnership to support our overall health. And my mom is really, really, really into health, physical health, and all kinds of health. And so, but yeah, I mean, that part's kind of hard to explain, but I think that has a lot to do with just your like intuitive connection with your child and with yourself, and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, as far as like guiding and supporting without, like, you know, being controlling.
Yeah, controlling.
Yeah.
I think the reading example is a great one, even though outside of school, reading is less relevant in those early years because there's so many other ways to get information. You know, it's not being delivered by the written word outside of school. But it's still an interesting comparison. And I have got 2 children that did learn to read in school and 2 children that aren't learning to read in school. So I'm finding it's so interesting, and it's really obvious when you see a child learning naturally to do something when they are at the center of it, and then reflecting on what is forced in the school system. And one of the big differences, and reading is a great example of this, because in the school system there is a methodology, and this is how it's done, and this is how it's taught, and this is how it's measured. So you not only do you see all of the learning as it happens, well, it's forced, so it's happening because you're making it happen. And then of course, if it's not happening, you're seeing that too. It's measured and recorded and compared, and it's linear, and it's like,
it's very linear, and it happens in this very specific order.
Yeah,
this very
that's right. And you can't learn this bit until you've learned that bit. But outside of school, it's nothing like that.
School, yeah, no, it's like learning
like that.
Learning in school is like this staircase. It's like this perfectly measured stepping stone staircase, kind of, very linear, all planned out in a very particular order. Learning outside of school, especially
it's just like that.
Yeah, learning
like all over.
without, like, self-directed learning or natural learning. It's more like a tree, you know, it'll sprout a little branch here, and then maybe a leaf, and then it like changes its mind and makes a thicker branch over here, and like it goes in like so many different directions. And then sometimes, like, even actually maybe a tree is not a very good analogy, because I feel like there'll be like something just hanging out there all by itself that gets learned, that's not connected to anything at all, and you can't see the connection maybe for years, and then like later on in life somehow tied into these other things. So it's like it happens in like all these wacky ways, and things get learned in different areas at different times, and then left while something else gets learned, and then maybe that thing gets gotten back to. Like, it's all over the place, and little bits here and big bits there, and leaps and bounds, and then nothing for a long time. So it's like all these things that we think we know about learning are just completely false, because it's completely unique to every child. And then that's the thing where even in like the unschooling community, I see a lot of this absolutely from an effort to love and support your children and completely unconscious. But this, like I was saying, like using a child's interest against them, oftentimes like thinking that that's your job now, support and encouragement. We have this idea of support and encouragement being this very kind of aggressive thing. And to me, it's like support and encouragement can be very, very passive. You can still be supporting and encouraging without being aggressive. This idea like, oh, my child is interested in this thing. And then you have this idea that that's what they're interested in. And this is how it's going to go. And it's like, no, maybe they're interested in that right now. And it has nothing to do with anything. And
3
it might
weeks.
not be going
3 weeks is the
anywhere.
limit.
Or a day or 5 minutes. I mean, or years. Like just because they've expressed an interest, just because they're like really into airplanes right now, it doesn't mean shit about shit. Like it doesn't mean anything about anything. That means that's what they enjoy doing right now. And that's all it means. Like stop, like we need to stop imbuing like children's interest and activity with all this meaning and with all this learning stuff. Like it has nothing to do with anything, at least, or maybe it does, but you don't need to attach any meaning to it in order for like learning does not need you, and it does not need you to know it's happening. It doesn't even need you to be observing it. In fact, it does a lot better when you're not paying attention.
It's like magic.
So it's like magic. And it's not when you're not paying attention to your child, but I mean, when you're not focusing on the learning aspect of whatever's happening. Yeah. So, yeah.
Because and adding our own agenda onto the top.
And then putting an agenda on the top.
Beautiful magic that's happening. My light's going to die soon. It's getting dark outside, but I just wanted to go back because someone had a question. I'm not sure if they're still watching. Stephanie wants to know, would this be the way for all ages? My son is 13 and we're very new to this. I'm interested to know, Stephanie, is it what your son wants for a start? Because that's kind of key. I think if he's in school now at 13 and as a parent you say, right, you now have to leave school because I just like watch these women talk on Facebook and it sounds amazing. And he like does it, which it is, but like, you know, and he's like, no, you know. So I think there's got to be a conversation with the child, but assuming your son at 13 wants to not be in school, hell yeah.
Yeah,
it's never too late.
We're just talking about living. So living is for everyone. And living according to your natural instincts and interests and passions is for everyone. So when people say, oh, well, unschooling is for some children and school's good for some children, I'm like, no, actually, no, I'm sorry, but control, manipulation, coercion, force, bribery, that's not for anyone, actually. But life is for everyone. Life and freedom and the right to the pursuit of happiness, that is for everyone. So I'm not one of those people that's going to go and say, oh, well, unschooling is for some people. And, you know, no, I don't. I think that there's a million different ways to parent within unschooling. And I'm not saying that you need to do it in this one specific way or anything like that. But I am saying that I do believe that it is, how do I say this? It's always wrong to force another human being, regardless of their age, against their will to do anything that they are uncomfortable with, unwilling to, unready for, uninterested in. That's not right. It's a violation of another human being's basic human rights. And I don't care if they're 2 or if they're 20 or if they're 200. It doesn't matter. It's about basic human rights. So it's, like what Sarah said, if your son, you know, he's 13, he should absolutely have a say in his own life and what he wants to do right now today. So does he want to go to school? Does he want to stay home? That's up to him to a certain extent. I mean, obviously there's times when, you know, a child's about to do something really dangerous and you naturally and instinctively grab them back from the edge of danger because you're their parent and it's your job to protect them. But it's up to you to find those places in yourself of like when that's appropriate to protect your child from something that it could be really harmful or dangerous. But in this kind of situation, this is about like his own education and his life experience, then he should absolutely have a say in how that goes. So if he's wanting not to go to school, then I would say, of course, I'm going to tell everyone that. I'm going to tell everyone don't go to school. But at 13, he's probably got a whole lot of deschooling to do, and he might need 6 months or a year or God knows how long to literally like do nothing. At least what you would consider to look like doing nothing. To me, you see it sitting here being in silence is something, and you're always learning, even when it doesn't look like it. Absolutely, there's no such thing as doing nothing. So, but I always like to tell parents who are considering taking their children out of school, if a child's already in public school, that they might need a lot of time to like decompress, and just don't even be waiting. Like don't even be waiting or watching or looking for something to happen, or for you to be able to look, oh, he's got an interest and he's learning something. Like he literally needs like just so much space and time to
Like
do
enroll him in classes. This could
Oh,
save parents a lot of money knowing this stuff.
yeah, like I really feel like you have to just absolutely stop, like
Just
stop.
restraint, yeah, just
Because
restraint.
you have to
and
wipe
like,
the slate clean. You have to completely wipe the slate clean because it's filled up with all this stuff. And so until all of that has been like detoxed out, and then things will just start to like appear on the slate, and you don't have to put them there. At 13, I mean, what a beautiful like opportunity to spend your teen years. Like that's when I started really kind of discovering my passion. I was 14, I started making glass beads, and had I been in school, I probably wouldn't have come across that, for one thing, because it was through an unschooling friend that I came across it. And then I doubt I would have had the energy, the time, or the passion had I been wasting all that time, energy, and passion just trying to get by in high school. So instead, while everyone else was in high school, that's what I did. While my friends were in school, my school going friends were in high school, I would spend those hours on my torch, like developing my craft and mastering my art form. And so now I'm only 32 years old, but I have 18 years of experience as a glass bead artist. And I meet women who are like, oh my God, I'm so jealous. I didn't start making glass beads until I was 40, you know? And they're like, God, what I would have become, what I would be now if I'd started when I was 14. And they're like, I can't wait to see what you're doing in another 10 years. Because I guess I'm considered like one of the higher end glass bead makers, and I get asked to do tutorials for glass bead magazines and stuff like that. So some of these women, I'm like the youngest one, and some of these women are older than me, and they're just getting started, and they're just like blown away, and they're just like, wow, like this is incredible, and like how amazing that you were able to start doing this so young. So I think that if a child is choosing, like they don't want to go to school anymore, then absolutely let them stay home, let them do nothing for as long as they need, let them get really good and bored, and when they're really good and bored, they will come up with something. They'll do something. They'll go outside, you know, they'll start pruning a tree, they'll get into growing food, or they'll, you know, start hammering it and become a metalsmith, or they'll, who knows, like we have no idea what might perk their interest. But also I think that reminds me of something else, that like just because, like, not to put, like I was saying, not to imbue an interest with too much meaning. And part of that is we do this thing where we're like, oh, you're interested in this, that means this. But someone could have looked at my glass bead making thing, and like when I first started, and they could have been like, oh, you know, you're gonna be something, and it could have been totally different than what I ended up with. So what am I trying to say here? It's kind of like the aspect that they are interested in might not be obvious to you. So it's like they might be interested in right now, it might be like, oh, they're interested in the garden, they're interested in gardening, they're growing food, oh, they want to get into, you know, agriculture, but it actually might lead them to a totally different interest. And it might be like, no, actually I want to get involved with like this, you know, some kind of nonprofit that's helping feed people in other countries. You know, like it it could like get into some other aspect of growing food that has nothing to do with like having a garden. Like you don't know like where that interest is going to lead them. It could be in a totally different direction than you perceive. So I think that being really careful, like jumping onto those ideas of like, oh, my child loves ballet class, they want to be a dancer. Well, actually, maybe it's the tutus that they like, and they'll end up designing, ball gowns. Like it could go in a totally different way than you think it is. So the thing that is really attracting them about not be what you think it is. That's my point, really. So to stay really like open and like hands off with that.
I mean, everything you were saying points right back to just sitting back and as a parent and providing the space and the time, sometimes some resources, for them to flourish in the way that they were born to flourish. And we can absolutely not know what that journey is going to look like for them. But if we're just walking beside them, and this is my experience, they invite us to come along with them.
Yeah. And it's like, be careful with that providing resources. It's like provide what is being asked for. Because oftentimes I think there's a lot of very common parenting methods or techniques that go unquestioned that actually have very manipulative undertones without realizing it. Like even something as innocent as like what people are calling strewing, where you're leaving things in your child's path for them to discover.
I mean, come on, who hasn't tried it?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I'm saying like it seems very innocent, and I'm not like judging anyone for trying that, but I like to look at where that's coming from, and I like to dig really, really deep. And to me, that is a manipulative behavior, because
if there's an agenda,
your best agenda, there's manipulation. I wouldn't enjoy if someone did that to me. I'd be like, if you got me something cool, come give it to me and talk to me about it. Why would you be weird and try and trick me into being, like, to me, that isn't being straight and honest and genuine and authentic with your child.
Just like leaving, I'll just leave this history book here on the table.
Or whatever it is, to me, it's like playing tricks, and you're playing games, you're playing mind games. And guess what? Your children are going to start playing mind games back at you. Like that's
most kids are switched on. The only time I never really did strewing, but like I got this magazine subscription once a few years ago, and I thought it would be really interesting, and I thought, I'll get this magazine subscription and just see if the kids are interested in it. They never were. And I would just like, I had this like stack of them. I would get them and read them because I thought they were really interesting. But it's a reminder. Sometimes as a parent, you need a reminder to drop your agenda, drop your attachment to an outcome, which is really always based in fear. And my kids are great at holding me accountable to my own shit. They really do. They don't put up with any of that. And if I forget and need a reminder, they tell me.
Children, I mean, that's like, I always feel like that whole idea of like kids pushing boundaries. I don't think that's what's happening. I don't think children are pushing boundaries. I literally think they're just showing you.
They're just
somewhere for you to look in yourself. They're not pushing boundaries on purpose. They're literally being like, this is off, Mom. What's going on here? That's what they do, because any place, anywhere, like to me and my mom and I, like she's my person, she's my person. She's my best friend. She's my everything. Like she's the one. And I like to tell parents, like, children, you're gonna like most people, right, will spend years, if not their whole lives, like searching for the one. We are looking for someone, even if it's just a friend, someone who's going to love and accept us completely the way that we are and completely the way that we are not, love us unconditionally and support us and all of this. And like, why make your child wait a whole lifetime? Like you can be the one right now. Like you can be their one, and it's forever. Like my mom is my person. And like, I really wish that people understood that you can have that with your children. Like, it doesn't have to change, and you don't have to go through these ugly teen years either, where people are like, oh, you can't be friends with your teenagers. My mom was like, I do not accept that. And so she didn't, and we didn't. And it was, and people want to know how. And to me, it's like, it's all about the relationship. It's like, you prioritize your relationship with your children, you prioritize the connection, you prioritize your mental like emotional balance and connection. I just keep saying the word connection because that's all I can think of.
Yeah, that's it. That's all there is.
Everything else will fall into place. But and like, that was my mom's thing, was like, her absolute top priority in life and with her children was that we had peace and harmony in our home and with each other. So it was like, anything that didn't support that was like, no. Anything that didn't support like absolute connection and harmony in our relationships and our family relationships got thrown out. And it was like, it didn't matter. I don't care if it's educational, if it's not supporting like our joy and our peace, then what's the point? So a lot of it kind of gets into a lot of other things, but basically, yeah, it's like, if you prioritize that, the rest will fall into place. The learning will happen naturally. You don't need to worry about it. This isn't about, I think that sometimes people take this like unschooling to be kind of negligent parenting, but it's quite the opposite, because it requires an immense amount of presence and patience and connection, and intuition. And it's about maintaining healthy relationships with your children so that the learning can happen. Because if you are off, if like, I feel like that's where children, when people say they're pushing boundaries, what they're doing is they're trying to regain connection. They're trying to regain connection to you and to their natural state of well-being. Something is off. So it's like, anytime that a child is pushing that, they're showing you where you need to repair the connection. And then if the connection is in place and if the child is in balance, then everything else can happen naturally and quite easily. Learning shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't be hard. It can happen really, or I mean, it can be difficult. It can be challenging, but that's different than it being like strenuous. Like, learning doesn't have to be strenuous. It can be challenging. I won't say that there aren't things that weren't challenging for me to learn, but it wasn't painful because I was in it for myself. And I had that connection to my mom. Like, I had that rooted, grounded, I had this solid, and I still do, this solid foundation. And I really feel that it's the parent-child relationship that will set the tone for everything else in life. So that's the relationship that matters. That's like if anyone, I highly recommend reading The Continuum Concept, because it kind of starts to that whole connection and what happens when that connection is broken, and that's when we fly off the handle. So it's really like, that was the most important and beautiful thing about my mom's parenting. It had nothing to do with school. It had nothing to do with school or not school or any of that. It had everything to do with our natural balance and our love and connection and peace and harmony. And when you prioritize that, and my mom says, like, this was her own spiritual personal journey, and it was not easy. And it's like years and years, and it's never really over. Constantly developing and evolving and being willing to change and humbling yourself in front of your children and allowing yourself to be on your knees and crying and saying, I don't know what to do. And that's okay. Like, to be in the unknown and to let yourself really like lose control and face that fear and that terror of like not knowing what to do, and not trying to get somewhere where you're going to know what to do, but to literally like be in the unknown, like parenting in free fall. That's what my mom really likes to invite people to do, is like, go ahead, jump off the cliff.
Yep, just jump.
Just let go of everything you think you know, and just be here right now with what is and what's happening right in front of you, without an agenda, without any preconceived notions of how it should be or how it could have been or how it will be or any of that. And I think that one of my mom's biggest strengths raising us was the humility and her willingness to always allow herself to be vulnerable with us. A lot of parents feel that showing vulnerability to your children is a sign of weakness and they won't respect you and this all that ridiculousness. And it's absolutely the opposite. And I can tell you from experience, and I'm not the only one. I have 3 brothers that all feel the same, that it was my mom's humility that earned her our respect. And it was her coming to us and saying, I don't know, guys, like I really screwed up earlier. I said this thing or I reacted this way. And that was coming out of this place. And I'm really sorry. And like, I want to clean this up with you. And that like has had me, no matter how young, it had me like step up to that and learn to do that myself. So it's like, I don't think that parents see respect from children the same way that children see respect, and that if you want to earn your child's respect, that you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable and show humility and apologize when necessary and clean things up when you know you've stepped off somehow, and to have this attitude of, you know, what are we going to do about this, even when it's like some kind of challenge that the family is going through, whether it's about bedtimes or meal times or whatever is going on, that it's a we, like, what are we going to do about this and how are we going to resolve this? And we would all share ideas and we would all discuss and come to conclusions together. So I don't remember where that conversation started, but
thank you so much. I mean, there's just literally nothing else to say.
Mom, is that you? Mom? Yeah. I thought my mom was walking up. I was going to have her say hi. But
oh my God, I need to talk to your mom one day.
Well, see, here's the thing is my mom, I'm the one that is really like verbal about this. And like, I'm a little maybe bringing more the psychology and the analytical side to it, because for her, it's very, very heart centered and intuitive centered. But I think that makes us a pretty good pair, being that, you know, she has the experience of actually being the parent for one thing, and can really like speak to those struggles in other mothers and those fears in other mothers. But I'm maybe the one that's kind of bringing the language to it and describing what she did in a more analytical, like a more mental kind of way, because for her it was a lot more intuitive, emotional based. I don't want to say emotional, but kind of more, on that deeper level. So I'm the one that's kind of like teasing out how to really describe and get into the details of it.
Thank you so much. My light is like really failing now, so I'm going to sign off. Okay. And I mean, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. Thank you so much. I hope that I know that people that watched would have got some value. There are a few questions that people have asked, so maybe, you know, if you feel like you want to, you or I could like just jump in and type some stuff. We can
also do another video where we just go through and answer the questions too. That would be fine. So if anybody wants to, you know, keep writing in questions, maybe we can come live again just to read through.
Absolutely, that's directly. A good idea. Yeah, okay. Cool. Thank you so much. What a stroke of serendipity that I met you last week. I'm so grateful, and I'm so grateful that you made the time to talk. This is my
favorite thing. Honestly, like, this is one of my favorite things to do, because I really just want other children to have what I had and to be allowed to be.
I know. Yeah, me too. Me too. Thank you. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Summer. See ya.